11, 10, 12. Dear Gail, we've been working very hard here at the church, so there has been time for little else. The good news is most everything seems to be back to normal, and all of our staff have recovered from their ordeal. The bad news is we're still sitting ducks should Gail return. We were lucky to have run her off the first time. Now the most unlikely thing happened the other day. One of our scouts returned from a reconnaissance mission over Jesuit territory. They are still in a terrible state of disrepair from the last Gail attack. According to our scout, he was skimming Jesuit activity below when he was suddenly thrust into a frightening scene. Gail was circling Jesuit territory, opening fire. A Jesuit fighter ship came soaring overhead, and you wouldn't believe what they were trying to do. They had opened a hatch on the side of the ship, and using loudspeakers, they were blasting your music into the air directly toward Gail. It's like they have been watching us closely to figure out how to defeat this android using our methods. As our scout watched, Gail appeared to be attracted to the ship and drew closer. She then pulled down her dress and fired a swarm of torpedoes from her nipple guns. The blast was so powerful it broke the ship in 2 pieces. The massive thing went crumbling to the ground like a stale cookie, exploding and destroying many more Jesuit buildings below. Gail flew off in another direction, presumably to go wreak more havoc on the rest of the city. Our scout hightailed it out of there and returned to us at the church. He had barely finished his recollection of the event when our men at the helm reported a Jesuit ship looming into our radar. We zoomed in on the view screen and saw something extraordinary. Jesuits were hanging out of the windows, waving white flags. As soon as they drew close enough, we received a hail. We all looked at each other in astonishment, but with some caution, we allowed them to speak. On the view screen stood Rule 13 with her head down, her hair all a mess and covering her forlorn face. She had taken off her Nazi hat and was holding it to her chest. It was hard to muddle through her thick accent, but luckily we had some Japanese staff on our side that were able to translate her. The Jesuits are being annihilated by Gail, and every strategy, every weapon they have used to try to defeat her has flopped. They are asking if they can schedule an appointment with you and our choice of legal representative, I would assume Terrance, of course, on Skype to discuss the matter further. They will be sending a high representative from their side to talk to us as well. We told them we would discuss the matter with you first and get back to them with our decision. There is no evidence that Gail is making copies of herself, but she's learning to repair herself more and more rapidly. According to the Jesuits, none of them have spoken to her since the fallout they had with her at the sex party. But she is having a party of her own now, causing chaos wherever she goes. She hates all of humanity. We are like insects to her. Christians, Jesuits, or atheists, we're all the same in her eyes. It's only a matter of time before she comes back to finish what she started. I hope you are keeping warm. Stay safe and know that I adore you every moment. Your husband, Brent Spiner. 11, 12, 12. Dear Gail, I'm not surprised that your brain-to-brain has been so shaky lately. Gail has been destroying every Jesuit city she can find, and as we speak, there are countless new cockies blowing up and filling the atmosphere. The Jesuits can't help this, since they are helpless to stop her, but I sure do hope they've learned their lesson about creating such noxious bombs. It's going to take forever to clear up the atmosphere from all of that radiation, and it's only getting worse. The men and I have been hard at work installing hundreds of speakers on the outside of the church building. We instructed the Jesuit ship to be prepared to help us and told them to camp out while we ran this experiment. They agreed, and we stayed in contact through our view screens. It took some thorough searching, but we were able to track down Gail and get her on our radar. We didn't wait for her to see us. We turned the volume all the way up and began blasting your music from every speaker. I felt every hair on my body vibrate from the deep bass. Hugh was laughing and pointing at Rule 13 as her hair flew up and her breasts began vibrating. She scowled at him. I insisted for everyone to stop squabbling for a moment and pay attention. All of a sudden, Gail was rapidly approaching on our radar. "Brace yourselves, everyone," I shouted. I turned the music up louder. "Focus on the music. Feel the music." Like a missile, Gail began encroaching on our position. The men and I concentrated on putting our fears aside and began enjoying the beautiful music. Some of us sang along. As Gail drew closer and closer, the Jesuits began to join in as well. We were all singing, swaying, reveling in the beautiful sound. Moments later, I looked outside and saw that Gail had stopped outside of the church building looking down on us. At first, she didn't seem to be doing anything, and I wondered what she was thinking. That's when I noticed the volume fading on our speakers. I went to go turn it back up, but the volume switch was already all the way to maximum. "It's Gail," Gerard declared. "She's absorbing our sound waves. How is this possible?" Gail's booming voice could be heard cackling outside. "Quick," I said. "Rule 13, start blasting your speakers before our sound waves run dry. Gail said we need to try mixing them." Rule 13 shouted something in Japanese, and the whole Jesuit ship came to life with more of the music. The volume in the skies returned as the sound waves augmented our own. "Is it working?" shouted Matthew. We all looked towards the windows anxiously. Gail was sprawled out in the sky as if she were floating in a pool. Her eyes glowed, and a devilish smile slid across her cold steel lips. We heard the sounds fading once more, and then the Jesuits hustling around throughout their own ship, swiftly trying to turn the volume back up. "It's no use," Rule 13 shouted, throwing every switch she could trying to push the speakers. "She's sucking music like miso soup on sweaty hot flash night." I didn't know what she was saying, but I quickly got the idea. Within minutes, all of the music had faded from the sky. All that was left was the hum of our engines, and Gail still floating high overhead. "Oh my goodness," Terry shouted. "What's going on? What's happening to her vagina?" Something glowed overhead. Gail's metallic vaginal lips were slowly parting, and deep inside, I could see a ball of light forming. "It's not," Matthew's voice trailed off. "It's her resonant queophometric weapon," Terry declared. "Take cover," Vladimir called. I could hear a sweep of frightened shouts all around me as everyone ducked and braced. It all happened before I had time to embrace the full magnitude of what was happening. The entire room was suddenly engulfed in a shrill amplification of powerful sound waves. It was so loud, my ears instantly burst. Silence gripped my senses, and yet to my horror, violent chaos was still crumbling down around us. I watched as men I knew, literally vibrated so hard they blew apart like water balloons. The ceiling opened up, and we scrambled as metal debris began raining down all around us. We were being destroyed. This was the end. I looked up in time to see missiles firing from the Jesuit ship towards Gail, my deafness broken by a loud scream as she was hit. I was shocked. I knew that any ship that dared attack Gail was flirting with suicide. Gail became enraged. One more hit, and I knew our church was a goner. But as the Jesuits began to drop their onslaught of weapons on the android, she quickly lost interest in us and began flying after the Jesuit ship instead. The last thing I saw was Rule 13 standing in the cockpit, her arm raised in a Nazi salute toward us as the ship backed away and began luring Gail away from the church. The colors faded from my vision, and I don't remember much after that. Gerard told me I had passed out from blood loss. The next thing I knew, I was in the infirmary, but it didn't look as I remembered it. The whole church had been reduced to a skeleton of its former self, desecrated under heaps of rubble, smoke, and bodies. There were janitors outside my room, some mopping up rivers of blood, others following behind with a pressure washer to hose the brains off the walls. I was worried for the other men, and I quickly rose to go find them. But Gerard planted his hand into my chest and pushed me back down on the bed. I'm under strict orders not to move from here until my internal injuries heal. I have a shattered pelvis, 7 herniated discs, a severed small intestine, a twisted stomach, a hangnail, 2 burst appendixes, a dislocated kidney, and my gallbladder was punctured by one of my ribs. I'm in and out of consciousness from the medicine, but I have my laptop and my Bible with me, and I am thinking of you. They say that what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. My spirits are high, and I am warmed by thoughts of you safe at home. Your husband, Brent Spiner. Thanks again to my patrons. Your support and encouragement has really helped me in our fight for true love against the evil Jesuit order. I'm really happy to have such awesome friends, and I really like hanging out with you guys on our movie nights. So thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. This is a shirt that Zach Knight sent me for Halloween present. And here's my corkboard. When you send me stuff at my P.O. box and cards, I'm going to put it right up here, and you'll see it on the back of all my videos.
Gail, Gail, Gail.